Good evening. In today's program, we explore two critical developments in global diplomacy. The Syria conference in Paris, where leaders from Western and Arab nations are convening to discuss Syria's future amid U.S. aid freezes, and the shifting U.S. stance on the Russia-Ukraine conflict as President Trump and Vladimir Putin agree to initiate peace talks. What do these moves mean for the future of Syria and Ukraine? Join us as we analyze the potential outcomes of these crucial negotiations and their global implications. I'm Hira Al-Hamalawi. Welcome to In Focus. In Paris today, international leaders convened to chart Syria's future, focusing on political transition, humanitarian aid, and reconstruction. Syrian Foreign Minister Asad al-Shibani's attendance underscores a pivotal moment for Syria's sovereignty and security. The conference aims to coordinate efforts among Western allies and Arab nations, addressing critical issues such as sanctions relief and transitional justice. This gathering marks a significant step towards a stable and inclusive Syria. The Washington Post, meanwhile, has reported that in Paris, Western allies and Arab countries are gathering for a crucial conference on Syria's future, following the aftermath of Bashar al-Assad's ousting and the uncertainty surrounding U.S. support. The freeze on U.S. foreign assistance has heightened concerns, particularly in the northwest, where millions rely on aid. With Syria's economy in ruins, the conference seeks to coordinate international efforts for reconstruction and a peaceful political transition. The UN estimates that rebuilding costs could surpass $400 billion, requiring substantial aid from global donors. The conference also highlights concerns over U.S. military involvement as Syria's new leadership under Ahmad al-Shara aims to consolidate power amidst growing tensions. Providing more analysis about the most recent updates concerning the Syria conference in Paris and its potential repercussions, joining us from Cairo, Dr. Nourhan al-Sheikh, political science professor. Welcome, Dr. Nourhan, and let's begin with your opinion. How does the Syria conference in Paris signal a potential turning point in international efforts for Syria's recovery?
Good evening, and thank you for hosting me in your program. Actually, the situation is fragile up to the date. It's too difficult to predict what will going on. But Paris conference is still, as you mentioned, a very important step forward. But the problem is there is no consensus, no among Arab countries, no among international parties, among them even Europe. There is no consensus about what will going on in Syria and what should be in Syria. The most important players now, or parties, Turkey, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia. Yes, they are all allies for US, but unfortunately, although that, each of them has its own agenda. So we are facing different agendas for regional powers, for international powers. Even within the EU itself, there is no such consensus. Some mentioned that it is time to help Syria to push it forward ahead, and some countries also still doubt about what is going on, like Cyprus, still doubt about what is going on, and that it is important to wait and see much more. So it is fragile and many contradictions, but still a step, important step to normalize the situation of Syria regionally and internationally as well.
So with the United States foreign aid now frozen, what role can European and Arab nations play in Syria's reconstruction?
The problem, really, it is the United States. United States last month, early January, released some of its sanctions, but not all sanctions. Still, Qatar Act, which is the most harmful for Syria, still exists. And I didn't think that within such a situation and that Qatar Act still exists, I don't think that so many countries can really help Syria. They have already aid from Turkey, from Qatar, Saudi Arabia also promised, but internationally that would not help a lot. Unless the United States didn't change or wouldn't change its position and lift all sanctions on Syria. And I didn't think that United States will do that in the scene, but maybe later on, maybe after Paris conference. But I think it will connect it with what will going on Syria. Next month, it should be a new government in Syria. And Ahmed Shara promised that it will represent all powers, political powers, political actors, Syrian one. But actually, the conference itself didn't have representatives from courts, for example. So it doesn't seem that the new government would really represent the whole political power, Syrian political powers. So I think it's too early also to judge, but hopefully all the promises will be fulfilled and the next government really represent whole Syrian powers and political parties and all the people in Syria. This is very important to calm the doubts internationally and regionally.
But do you think that France and its allies can successfully lift sanctions to pave the way for Syria's economic revival?
Actually, the EU not in a good economic situation, and generally the EU is also review and revising all aid, even what that given to Ukraine. They also trying to judge it and evaluate it. So, and the most important countries, the big economic powers within the EU, like Germany and even France, I think that economically the situation is not going that much good within them, and they have a lot of challenges. So it is not easy for EU to give that much aid to Syria. And I think that Conference of Paris, it is a political more than economic, although they said that it is for economic aid to Syria, etc. But I think it's much more political and to redirect, if it is the right word, the attitudes of the new government toward more democratic or more tolerant government in the future. And after that, after the new system or the new government in Syria prove that it is for all Syrian, and it would be stability and security within Syria, maybe they will look for aid and for lifting sanctions. What I think the EU is very interested in to have stability and security in Syria. This is a top European agenda, because they really want to release the migrants' burden from...
Exactly. It's the migration problem that is loading European countries. Yes.
Yes, this is true.
So, Professor, what impact might the United States military's uncertain role in Syria have on the ongoing political transition?
The United States military presence in Syria, it is not that much. It is around 2,000 soldiers, and they are concentrated in El Tanaf, and in the north area of Korch. But I think that United States, there is no plans to withdraw totally from Syria. I remember that Trump, in his first term, he mentioned that 100 days and United States will totally leave Syria. And later on, I think the Pentagon CIA advised him that it is not the right decision. So I didn't think that it is not, the United States will going to leave Syria that easy. I think it will maintain its presence by way or another, particularly in the oil or around the oil fields.
Yes. So, what are the key challenges in coordinating aid for Syria's war-torn infrastructure and displaced populations?
Syria now nearly totally destroyed, and it has no infrastructure, oil. For people, at least electricity, water, all infrastructure for different kinds. I think now it is totally nearly destroyed, and it needs a huge amount of investments. It needs also technology to able to rebuild such infrastructure. So I think Syria, first of all, or the first step, or to lift or to leave. Sanctions, and to give enough investments. They need investments, not just aid or loans, because loans and aid will give more and more burden on the Syrian government. But it is better to be investments for the infrastructure.
Well, that was Dr. Nurhan Sheikh, political science professor. Thank you very much for joining us here and for your special insights. And in a significant development, President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin have agreed to initiate negotiations aimed at ending the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. This decision follows a comprehensive and productive phone conversation between the two leaders. At the same time, U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has suggested that Ukraine may need to make territorial concessions, stating that a return to pre-2014 borders is unrealistic. These developments have raised concerns among Ukrainian officials and European allies about the potential compromises in the pursuit of peace. The Times has reported that President Donald Trump announced an agreement with Russian President Vladimir Putin to begin negotiations aimed at ending the Russia-Ukraine war. This development follows a significant prisoner swap, with Trump emphasizing his goal of achieving peace and quickly as possible, even suggesting a future meeting with Putin in Saudi Arabia. The U.S. approach marks a shift from the Biden administration's policy, which insisted on Ukraine's participation in any peace talks, while Ukrainian President Zelensky has expressed a willingness to cooperate. His administration remains concerned about being sidelined in these crucial negotiations. In a broader context, Trump's move also signals a potential shift in U.S.-Russia relations, as both leaders have expressed interest in long-term cooperation on various global issues, including Ukraine's future. Providing more analysis about the most recent updates concerning the Russia-Ukraine war and its fate, joining us from Dubai, Mr. Ivan Yuas, advisor at the Ukrainian National Center. Welcome to In Focus, sir. And let me begin by asking you, how do you assess President Donald Trump's recent decision to initiate peace talks with Putin and its implications for Ukraine's sovereignty?
My greetings to you and my greetings to all our audience. So, of course, when Donald Trump wins the election in Ukraine, we understand that it will be the course of another color compared to his predecessor, Joe Biden, who, of course, said, first of all, who have no talks with President Putin, and who say that there will be no talks about Ukraine without Ukraine. Now, Mr. Trump, when he became the president, he decided to change the situation. He started a connection with President Putin, and at least according to Bloomberg, quite possible that it will be talks about Ukraine without Ukraine. But what I want to say, Ukraine understands that risks. That's why in October of previous year, the month before president election in US, Ukraine presented our victory plan, and 2 of 5 items of that plan, as for me, was oriented directly on Donald Trump, oriented on his ideas. That's why Ukraine start preparation for this new shift, and it means that it's not the end of the story. Yes, this was predictable, as we can predict Trump, because the only thing that we can say about Trump that we can predict his unpredictability. But it means that really new reality comes, and we should think what to do in this new reality. And first of all, it should be not that in the story. It should be not defeat of Ukraine or capitulation of Ukraine. So we will see what will be in the next months or till the end of this year. Thank you.
So, with the exclusion of European leaders from US-Russia negotiations, what does this mean for Europe's role in shaping Ukraine's post-war security?
You know, Donald Trump, he start conflicts with European Union as he do in his first term, when he was a president after 2016 victory in election till 2021. And really, it was a period of really hot relationship between Europe and Trump. And now Trump wants to return to this epoch. He start talks about higher tariffs on European products. And now he tried to say that there will be talks between US and Russia about destiny of Ukraine that actually situated in Europe and that plan to be in the European Union. That's why Kaja Kallas, the foreign representative of European Commission, he said that that each talks about Ukraine without Ukraine and without Europe are hardly be successful, because first of all, it's Ukrainian army on the field is determining what should be as Russia army from the opposite side, and European Union still want to support Ukraine. But as for me, Trump like to say that Ukraine should be non-US but European problem, and quite possible that it's a pressure on Europe to pay more attention on Ukraine and to take more obligations on Ukrainian future and more help to Ukraine in our battle versus Russia. Thank you.
Trump's suggestion that Ukraine may need to make territorial concessions. How does this impact Kiev's position and international alliances?
Of course, Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth, he is the Secretary of Defense, they said that, it's reality, it's not a loss of Ukraine, but it's reality. But reality every day can change. Half a year ago, no one could imagine Ukrainian soldiers on the Russian territory. But now, half a year ago, Ukraine succeeded to control a small part of Russia, Kursk region, and we're still there. So Russia made their best to send our troops out of Kursk region, and thus we're there. I mean that in the war, it's hard to predict what could be, because sometimes the course of events so changed that in a month or so, the current events will be something uninteresting, as I said, situation could change. So for United States of America, they could not understand that it's our territory, it's our people, and sacrificing by our territory is not a good idea. Let's imagine someone proposed to US, for example, to return some territory to Mexico. I don't think that they will be glad. So the same situation with Ukraine.
So, given the shift in US policy under Trump, do you believe that Ukraine's full participation in negotiations is still feasible or realistic?
I think Ukraine can be a part of those negotiations. First of all, due to the fact that, as I said, our army on the field. As for the United States of America, I think that for them the main question is pressure on Europe, and if Europe will demonstrate more activity in supporting Ukraine, US can say, okay, as Donald Trump said, that we will not leave Ukraine, so they will help to Ukraine, but they need Europe to do more. And European countries, that is NATO, should have more expenditures for security area. And that is the Trump target. And let's be frank, as I said, in our victory plan, we start to talk about minerals in Ukrainian soil. And that is the argument that can press to Trump that if you want to get control over $500 billion that you mentioned, so first you should help the Ukraine to win this war, and then, of course, you can think about those minerals, but not vice versa.
So, how critical is the upcoming Munich Security Conference in shaping Europe's approach to the evolving US-Russia peace process?
Of course, it's important because, first of all, Europe and US should be on the one side. Because now, after a statement about Greenland, we have a fear that the tension between Europe and US start growing again. And we don't need that. You know that the situation that now happening in Gaza led to the fact that two main NATO armies appeared on the different side of this war. I mean, Turkey and US, that is the first and the second army of NATO. The same situation in help with Ukraine, that we need US and Europe and Turkey actually be in the same team helping Ukraine, because without such support for us, it will be very hard. It doesn't mean that it's the end of our story, but at least for Ukraine, it will be hard. So I think that Munich conference should make a response to one simple question: whether Europe and US are still one team or not.
So could Trump's diplomatic thaw with Russia signal a broader change in global geopolitical dynamics, particularly for Ukraine's future?
I think he tried to do that. So, of course, Russia idea to divide world between them and the United States. But let's be frank, Russia is not a big player. Russia was a global player when Russian soldiers were in the Syria land. But after changes of power in Syria, we see Russia out of this country. And now, returning to your previous talk, I think that now Qatar could give investment to gas pipeline from Qatar to Europe, to Turkey and then to Europe. And that will be money that need to Syria to survive without Russian support and to purchase agriculture product, for example, from Ukraine. So that's why our foreign minister was in Syria. So I mean that, of course, Russia losing its position, and US should take into account the fact that Russia is not such a serious player as they was in time when Trump was for the first time president.
Okay, finally, Mr. Yuas, what steps should Ukraine take to ensure its interests are protected amid this rapid shift in US foreign policy?
First of all, this deal about land minerals, so it's something that could interest US, because you know that it's a very good phrase that make as many person interested in your victory and you receive that victory. So United States of America, from the Ukrainian point of view, should understand that Ukrainian victory in this war not only increase their meaning in the global world, but also it can give a chance to US to receive some entrance to Ukrainian soil, to Ukrainian minerals, as we start talk with Mr. Bessam, the Secretary of Finance in the United States of America. So that is Ukrainian arguments. Plus another argument that US want to substitute their soldiers in Europe, and they can be substituted by Ukrainian soldiers. But for that, we need only to see Ukrainian victory and Ukrainian NATO, and that's all.
Yes. That was Mr. Ivan Yuas, advisor at the Ukrainian National Center. Thank you very much for your special insights. As Syria and Ukraine face pivotal crossroads, global diplomacy is at a defining moment. Will the Paris summit rebuild Syria's future while US-Russia peace talks reshape Ukraine's destiny? The world watches as alliances shift and history is written. And that brings us to the end of today's episode of In Focus. I'm Hala Al-Hamalawi. Thank you very much for watching, and stay tuned for more updates here on Qnews.